Before we go into your story, I'd actually love to talk more about the mission behind LoveShackFancy. What's the mission and North Star of the brand specifically?
So I think the mission and the North Star is definitely having a brand which is now fashion and beauty because we just launched fragrance, that really reaches and speaks to generations of women and girls. And really it's about, feeling confident, looking beautiful, feeling powerful, sexy, feeling extremely feminine, romantic, but also, owning it and feeling like a strong, powerful woman as well. So, it's the whole world of, I feel like Barbie really did such a good job recently, but it's like before there, we always say before there was Barbie, there was Love Shack Fancy. So it's about, being able to wear pink, to wear ruffles, to
Mhm.
wear these, sweet, beautiful dresses that sort of, take you from one special moment in life through another and feeling beautiful, sexy, romantic, confident all at the same time. So I feel like that's really important, and that starts at every age, from little girls all the way up to grandmothers.
I love it. I have goosebumps with you just saying that. And I love that you can wear pink, but still be powerful and confident. And I think your brand is just an amazing depiction of that. And I'm curious, going back to the early days of your life, were you this confident young woman that you are today and that the brand exudes?
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely confident. I've said, everyone always says, "Have you always loved pink? Have you always been this so like unabashedly feminine?" I went
Yeah.
through all the phases. I went through the grunge phase when that was cool with like Nirvana and in the 90s. Like I went through every single phase that was like trendy and 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 it started off in when I was young, I grew up surrounded by this world of vintage clothing, textiles, Laura Ashley wallpaper, clothing, even though I got to the age where I was refusing to wear it and my mom was still wanting me to. It was definitely like in my DNA, Victorian dresses, beautiful like Laura Ashley florals, things like that. And then, of course, rebelling against that and then wanting to, so I would say then through my 20s, my style changed, but then it was very much like mini skirts, any mini skirt I could find, like the best high heels and like rocker tees, leather jackets. And then really when I had my daughter, my first daughter, which is when I officially launched Love Shack Fancy, 2013 is when I like went so strongly into this world of like femininity and pink and the princess dresses and this nostalgia, this like more fairy tale world of,
Mhm.
really where the prints and the colors and all of that came together and where it really made sense like as one. So it has evolved and now I'm just like in it. I don't know if I can ever escape pink.
There's no going back. And I love that your daughter, and we'll get into this in a little bit later, just kind of unlock this passion and value
Yes,
that you
and then I
have.
had
So it's so
another
cool.
job, and then it was, like, even
Yeah.
more, and so as I was, like, like, reading like, all these, books from my childhood and watching these movies and, understanding all of and seeing how excited she would get to, like, dress up and wear a little, tutu skirt, and I was like, "I wanna wear a tutu skirt. I wanna wear a tutu
Yeah.
skirt and match her, and I wanna do this," and, so all these things, and then it's like, but how do you take what sort of reminded me of my childhood and make it more modern and fresh and give it a spin so it wasn't, like an old like shabby chic, for example, which I grew up with. It felt cool and different.
No, for sure. And, you mentioned your mom briefly. I know she's been a huge influence just for you growing up. She was like this badass woman in fashion, creative director at 17 magazine. I'm curious, what would you say is maybe one of the earliest childhood memories you have that you think might have been the most impactful for you?
Well, I mean, my mom, she worked so hard my whole life. And as much as a part of me always wanted her to be a stay-at-home mom and pick me up at school. And everyone always says, "Oh, your daughter's must be so proud of you." I think that you don't really realize what your mom is doing until later on and how much it impacts you down the road, to be honest. So, of course, I wanted her to be, with me all the time after school, but she was really busy. And so she would come home from work, and that was obviously before phones and emails and all this stuff. And so she would edit all of her photos, all of the, editorials. And I would lay in bed with her and we would, mark our selects and choose our favorites. And whether she was, editing text, copy, photos. We were choosing cover options. She just like included me in everything. And I just remember like snuggling with her in bed and loving it so much and feeling very much like a part of it. So I think that that was, and then anytime I could, I would go to the 17 magazine offices. And then all of like the assistants and the girls that worked for her in the fashion department were then my babysitters. They were like my mentors in life. I then ended up going to intern for almost like every one of them at Vogue, Teen Vogue, like all around. And it was really like I loved being in the fashion closet. I loved being in the beauty closet. I loved just being absorbed, and it was like this big sisterhood, and everyone just, they had fun, but it was work, but it was like a life, and it was just like this world of. So that was very much, and my mom was really in it. It was very much like, and she brought me along whenever she could as well. So I think that was really definitely, when I think back, it was just a part of my childhood. 17 magazine was like,
Your family,
family.
because you were a
Yeah,
single child, right?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, only, yeah,
I
it
love
was
it,
just
only
me.
child. Yeah, well, it's so cool because it's interesting reflecting back when you were younger and wishing you had a stay-at-home mom, but fast forward to today, all the beautiful lessons you had along the way, and
Right.
your daughters who are actively involved in the business, you're kind of taking it to the next generation, which is
Yeah.
so cool. So I love that. So fast forwarding a little bit, with this experience that you had interning and being in the fashion world, you ended up being a senior fashion and beauty editor at Cosmopolitan. And you've mentioned that the fashion design and the fashion editorial world isn't too different. What do you mean by that? I'd love to kind of unpack that a little bit.
Well, so I mean, I think for me, I started off working as an assistant. I mean, I started off interning. I interned at probably 8 to 10 magazines starting in high school, any chance I could. And then I worked at Glamour for Susie L.F. Schwartz doing like, we did makeovers, TV segments, things like that. And then I got a job working at Cosmopolitan. So I was associate fashion editor at first. So I assisted the fashion director. And so we did everything from concept, produce all the fashion shoots, celebrity shoots, beauty shoots, lifestyle, front of book, like everything, call in all the clothes and really dream up like the world that we wanted to create. And it was very much like, we wanted to give the readers, we wanted to inspire them, and we wanted to feel like a bit, inspirational and also attainable. Cosmopolitan for sure is one of the more attainable magazines as opposed to like a Vogue, which is super aspirational. But for me, I always was so interested in the dream of it too, and just the story and it's like where are the dresses, the accessories, where is it going to take you, how does it complete the look, like, and also fit into the environment, if she's on like a rocky beach, or if she's like running around through the streets of Paris or whatever it may be, and sort of the essence and like what that all means. So I think for me, that was always in my DNA, and that was always what I loved to do. I loved how it all came together, and really like the production of it, which is what I still really do love. And so, when I'm thinking about designing or pulling inspiration, because everything for me starts with vintage and vintage textiles, vintage clothing, and then we reinterpret and bring it into like this more modern new world. It's very much, where is she wearing it? What is she doing? Who's wearing it? How old is she? Is she wearing it to, her prom? Is she getting married in it? And like, what does the rest of that world surrounding her look like? So I think that the way that I have approached, Love Shack Fancy and starting this business, because it was never intended to be, it was really just like a side project for me. And I loved, I made my bridesmaids dresses in the beginning. And again, the bridesmaids dress was meant to be, I couldn't find anything that fit into the wedding as a whole, where it was like a backyard wedding in a beautiful tent at my family's home. And I just couldn't find anything that felt ethereal and romantic and beautiful that the girls could wear over and over again. So that was like, I was putting the dress into the environment. So I think for me, it's very much all of it coming together. And that's why I really picture, and that's why so much, we have content like overload here, where like, whether it's on her iPhone, whether it's photography, it's so much the world that she's in and the world that she's creating. and like being inspired by it. So I feel like, and magazines unfortunately have like such a different place right now. So girls, they don't really read magazines anymore. So they're looking to Instagram, they're looking to brands, they're looking to TikTok for, influencer everyone to sort of create those worlds and inspire them.
For sure. And you were pretty early on content. But before we go there, I want to talk about how you kind of started this as a side thing. You were doing your bridesmaid dresses, and it wasn't something that you quit your job and went all in until a few years later. So tell
Right.
me more, like, how did it go from bridesmaid dresses to, oh, there's something here and I might leave this career that I have to go
Yeah.
all in?
Well, I think, this was a time when magazines really were changing. And I just, you got to that point, I just felt not challenged anymore. And I was just a little bit bored. I felt like, it was always a dream to be an editor in chief of a magazine. But then I realized, okay, no, I don't want to do that. And I much preferred more of the creative, and I wanted to be a creative director, but it was just like things were changing. Bloggers, influencers were really just starting to become popular. We were very much like at the mercy of our readers at the time. So everything was like based on what they wanted to see from us, and less what we felt like as editors or as stylists like we should do. And so I designed my bridesmaid's dress like in the garment district in New York City, just as a fun project, because I literally couldn't find a bridesmaid's dress that I loved. The fabrics weren't good, the styles weren't great, and I just really wanted this flowy, beautiful dress that the girls could dance in, that felt like I wanted them to shine, and I felt these other bridesmaids dresses made the girls look so like frumpy and not like I was gonna have to redesign them. And I was like, let's just do this. So then the bridesmaids dresses were a huge hit. Then like 2 weeks later, I wore one of the bridesmaids dresses for my best friend's wedding, and I had like the best night ever. Dance, like I was like, this is the dream dress. Okay, I need to make this dress in another print. I need to wear it, have it as a beach cover up. I need to make it. I want to wear it to dinner on Friday night, and so I made the dress in different silk fabrications, and then everyone wanted the dress. So I started making just like 25 dresses, one of a kind fabric samples. I would go to Mood Fabrics in the garment district, buy whatever leftover fabrics they could get, discount fabrics, make them. Went to a pattern maker, I had the pattern, and I would just keep making these dresses. And so I did a few trunk shows out in the Hamptons like that summer, and then I continued to do it, or I made a few dresses for like a photo shoot if we needed something. I remember once like we needed a dress for Lady Gaga, and I was like, okay, maybe we didn't end up shooting it, but once we did on Vanessa Hudgens
Oh,
for
I love
this
it.
amazing beauty story. But, so it was really that. Then the next summer, it was like a slow project, and it was just like fulfilling my like creative needs. I was hand dyeing the dresses with my mom sometimes. And then I decided, oh, why don't we make a long skirt and a top? And then I started to try, I was like, why don't we do 8 styles? Maybe it's like 8 styles that never go out of style and that you can wear all the time, different prints, and they're all in silk. And I started to think about, I need the perfect mini skirt as well, because I lived in mini skirts. And the dresses were doing so well. And then I had this one, I was away actually in Saint Tropez, and I was on the beach with Lisa Marie Fernandez, and she gave me this like pep talk about, she's like, just do it. I did this. I was a stylist. I have my own business now. It's great. You're like me. You work so hard. I work 24 hours a day. I was like sleeping with my Blackberry, sleeping with, and my husband said to me, he's like, you work so hard. If you put all this passion and energy into something that was just for you, because I was getting frustrated at the time, he's like, I feel like it would be great. And like, I'll help you with the numbers because I'm not a number person. And so I came back. I was so like anxious, so upset, crying. I didn't want to, I hate change. And so, but anyway, I told my editor in chief, I was like, I think it's time. I want to just try this as a project. And she like gave me her blessing, Kate White, and she said, do it. And if all else fails, you can come back. So I left. And then the plan was to freelance style and to start this little business. And then I found out I was pregnant with Scarlett, with my first daughter. So I was like, okay, why don't I actually try to put this? But then I had no idea how much energy and work and time it would go into actually doing this. So forget the freelance styling. I was just doing this, designed like a few of the best selling styles, like a ruffle mini skirt now that year. went to the sales showroom, learned what a sales showroom is, learned how to price things, learned how to, I mean, I didn't even know what a showroom was, so I really taught myself and asked friends. And just because my mom had been in the business and I worked at magazines, it was completely separate from anything like from the business of a fashion company. So I was like starting from scratch and I just learned. I met some really great people who, and then I launched the business when Scarlett was born when I was so in 2013. And at the same time, I had been connected to Gwyneth Paltrow. So I made like a little capsule collection for Goop, which got like a good amount of press, which was really exciting.
And this was like early days of Goop, right?
This
Like
is early
early.
days at Goop. Yeah, we both started similar time. And, then but then I realized that I had no idea. I was like, oh, I had no idea. I had to then like figure out how to ship all the clothes. Then I had to figure out how to do this. And then it's like, okay, what's the next collection? I'm like, next collection. I just start. So I was really guided at that time by my sales showroom who was teaching me, showing me this is the sales cadence. We have 4 times a year. You need to have a collection. You need to do this. I mean, it was a very stressful first few years because it is really daunting and you think it's going to be like, as you said, like so glamorous and beautiful and fun, but it's really, first of all, it's so hard and scary to put yourself out there and to like be judged by everyone and to think that like, well, what if people don't like it? And because before when I was in magazines, I didn't really know it was a magazine. I put it out into the world. Like you don't really have that direct feedback. This is like, it is. And then you have to have your website. Instagram was starting to pick up. So Instagram was a really important thing. I was selling to different department stores and boutiques. And it's like, do they like it? Do they hate it? It was a mixed bag. A lot of people said, okay, I like the idea, but like, this feminine bohemian trend isn't really right now. So maybe, you should do primary colors and make it modern and maybe in like 10 years this trend will come back. And I kept on saying, this is who I am, this is the style. And if I'm going to do it, this is what it's going to be. So, it was very much a huge learning process, like for the first few years, I would say. Every time you think that you're doing a great job and you're like getting this huge order, and then it's like, okay, well, then how am I going to make it? And then how am I going to get the money to do that? And how am I going to figure out the fits and the stuff? It's like nonstop, to be honest. It's really a lot.
And I love that you said, every stage of the business is tough, but those early days are a different kind of tough. Like you're so vulnerable, you're so fragile, especially like with fashion design. Like it probably felt like you were naked. Like this is your whole self that you're putting out there. You don't know what people can feel. And what I find so interesting is that you mentioned you hate change, but being an entrepreneur and taking that leap, like every day is some wild roller coaster
Right.
and there's change. So how have you dealt with that? Because a lot of women are listening in who have that corporate job, who feel stable, have these dreams, but also are scared of change. So how do you get over that fear?
I mean, I think getting over it's just, it's great to have like those cheerleaders as well in your life. Like my husband is that for me for sure. And he's very much like, change is great, Rebecca. You have to do it. You have to evolve. Like change it. Like I am such a creature of habit and I love to feel comfortable and cozy and I love working with like a great group, surrounding myself with a great group of people who I feel comfortable with. But I think that ultimately like when you have to evolve and you have to grow as a business, as a person, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is. So I think you need to be able to like take those risks and just like, it sounds cliche, but like to believe in yourself and have a vision and feel strong and confident about it. And there's so many times where people said, oh, you shouldn't do this, or people told me I should change the name. LoveShackFancy, it sounds too young. It doesn't feel mature, sophisticated enough. And I really contemplated that. Like, and then I kept it. There's so many different, you have to figure out who to listen to and like, and really follow your gut. So, and at the end of the day, it's like, has your gut ever steered you wrong? Not really. Like you just need to listen to it and you have to stick behind it and you can't be scared and you have to it's like surrounding yourself with really strong, amazing, competent people who are able to lift you up, move you forward and help you in that way. So it's daunting, but it's always for the most part, hopefully. good.
Totally, 100%. And I love what you were saying. Just it sounds so simple, but it's so profound, like listening to your gut. I've had hundreds of women on this podcast, and that's like the common theme. And
Yeah.
every time I don't know what decision to make or someone's giving me feedback that I don't really agree with, I'm like, just tap into your gut. You know everything about the business. So just be clear with that. But it's so fascinating that in the early days, like all these department stores, which you were selling to, weren't really on board with your style. So how did you build that confidence to not veer off from what your vision was? Was it the customers that you had kind of giving you that positive feedback that kind of helped you stay in your lane? Because even to this day, your brand is so authentic to who you are. So you haven't wavered for anyone else.
I think that, I mean, I think there are a few things. I also think that, like, you know, the world of fashion really changed. Like department stores changed, boutiques changed, DTC became a, you know, direct to consumer websites, you know, brands selling directly to their customers and sort of taking the wholesale out of it change. Like smaller independent brands really weren't given such a big opportunity before. When I started, it was everything was run by the theories and, like, you know, the Michael Kors and Diane von Furstenberg and all of those, you know, really big department store brands. So, and then I think that that fashion also shifted. And I remember once, because I've always collected Victorian dresses, and so I wanted to sort of redesign these beautiful Victorian pieces in cotton with lace and make them something that could last forever. Because if you wear vintage, it's going to fall apart, and also it's like usually tiny. And so I wanted to design a few styles that felt like, you know, they were durable, they would last for a very long time. And so I started to work with India, with an amazing woman and factory in India who we're still working with, actually, and she helped us to produce these original cotton and lace pieces. And at that same time, that's when Burberry had these cotton and lace, like Victorian dresses on their runway. And so Net-a-Porter and Barney's picked up the black and white collection that I did at that time. And that was just like coincidence. It was just like that's what I was doing. And then it was like happening in the more ready to wear worlds of fashion as well. But then, like, my fits were wrong. My this, you know, I still had learning to do, but it still sold. So it was very much like a learning process in terms of that. But Net-a-Porter and Barney's really start, you know, they believed and they love finding these new brands. And even though there were some issues, like Net-a-Porter is still one of our biggest clients. And, you know, we've been able to work with them and figure out what works, what doesn't. Like maybe it's not as much, you know, it goes through waves of like what works in terms of more romantic, what works in terms of flowy or more modern or fitted. Now things are getting, you know, a bit more slimmer and like 90. So you kind of have to evolve with the trends, and you have to, you know, you just have to adapt and you have to listen and see what's working. For us right now, we actually were like 70% wholesale, 30% are direct to consumer, and right before COVID. And now we are 30% wholesale and 70% direct to consumer, because we have 17 stores now of our own. So between our stores, our website, it's like a third, a third, a third.
That is incredible. And I love that you mentioned, because so many people want everything to be perfect. And so much of business, just even looking at your story, is putting it out there, learning. Like you said, the first 3 years were the hardest. You didn't know what you were doing. You're selling to these incredible businesses, but the fit's wrong. So I just love to underscore that, because sometimes we don't take that leap until everything's perfect. And in reality, business doesn't work that way. And look, you still made it fast forward to today, like through
Right,
all.
exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
You know, now it's so incredible to see that you have now 17 stores. But let's talk about that first store you opened. I know, again, in another interview, you're like, I've never done a store. I knew nothing about this. So tell me more about the importance of that first store and really the biggest learnings you had with that, because that was pretty pivotal for you.
Yeah, so that was a huge, you know, I'd always dreamed of having a store or stores. And it was very important for me to really, really like translate the world of Love Shack Fancy, because for me, like from the beginning, it's very, you know, it's everything from the interiors, from the furniture, which I source all the furniture. Each piece is one of a kind, antique, reupholstered in our fabrications. You know, it's everything. And then like each store is inspired by the location where the store is. So it was very important for me to have the world as a place where you could walk in and see the vision. So it's like the clothing is part of it. And then I also buy third party. So I buy other brands, independent designers for the stores. And it was important for me to have, the customer walk in and be able to like travel and dream and sort of, just escape and feel inspired. And so when I would go into any of the stores, like an Intermix or a Saks, no offense to Saks, or wherever, it was just like a few random dresses hanging on a rack. And it was like there was no story there. And you
Yeah.
could never see the design intention and then the intention of the brand. And we have such a specific DNA and vision. So that was really what was important for that first store. And when we opened that store, I had no idea. Every time I'm like, no one's going to come, no one's going to come. When we opened it Memorial Day weekend, and there was like a line outside, and it was like flooded into the store, like young girls, teenagers, mothers, daughters, generations of women, just like in amazing, and like they all had been such fans, and I had no idea where. And I think that the younger girls had borrowed their moms like mini skirts or dresses and borrowed their summer wardrobe, and so it was like getting passed from generation to generation, but they had never really been into a store, and there was nothing like it. Like it was very maximal. It still is like maximalist and layered and intricate, and it's like when you walk in, it's like you can just discover something else. So I think that was really exciting, and definitely I knew that I was onto something. I was like, I actually had like a panic attack after, because I knew that there was such a demand and I had no idea what to do or how to do it. I was doing the buying, I was doing like I had just started to hire more senior level people to work with me, but I wasn't yet at a place where I had the right staff. And I knew nothing about running retail operations and all the margins and all the like just everything that goes into it. It's one thing to be able to have a store and to sell. It's another thing to like really make it profitable and to be able to then figure out how you can then continue and expand and grow and evolve. So there's just so much opportunity. So it was a huge learning curve, which so we started to hire then the right people at that time. And then we opened our next store, which is in Bleecker Street, about a year later. And then our Palm Beach store, I think like 6 months after that. And then COVID happened. And then so we had several stores that were like in the works. And then there were all these opportunities of amazing retail locations that came up during COVID that we like jumped on. And my husband's in real estate now. He works with me at LoveShackFancy full time. But I mean, he does all the real estate and development, everything for us. But he's like, let's go, go, go. Like this is the time. So we were like very bullish and opened all these stores.
That's so incredible to hear the story. And I want to talk about, you open up this store. It's incredible to see the demand that you had. Were you doing, I mean, you guys were pretty early on social. So was that also how people were discovering you as well at the time?
Yes. And then, yeah, that's definitely was like a big, a big factor. And I think it was also, that's how I was getting all the, I would get very frustrated in terms of like press coverage on store openings or on things like that. I mean, there was a great article in the New York Times and things, but also really like, how do you get this out to your customer?
Mm-hmm.
So I really just took to like Instagram and Instagram stories as like filming the whole thing and really bringing our audience in. And we had, of course, our website. So everyone, if they weren't there in person, because obviously not many people can go to a store location. It was a little store in Sag Harbor. So then everyone else can shop online. And then it's also helping all of the department stores that carry us. And, so it's really helping like 360 degrees, having, I think, your own store and figuring out the balance of it, because I do think it is great to have your own store. But it also can be a little bit, insular, and it's hard to get things out there if you don't also have at least some support from any wholesalers or, like a digital platform.
Presence. Totally. I mean, it seems like you were so busy, right? You're doing the content, you're designing the clothes, you have a wholesale business, you're creating a store. You, at the time, didn't have a team. You're doing everything, with a small team, mostly yourself. Did you ever get to the point, and before I go into this, sometimes people think like, once you hit the demand that it's amazing. But like you said, you felt panic because you're like, oh shit, like this is real. Like something's here and you don't even know what to do. You're like, who do I bring? So I can only imagine that anxiety
Yeah,
that you
and my
felt.
daughters were little and they
I
needed a
was
lot.
gonna ask.
Yeah, so it was
Yeah,
like very much I was like fully in it, in it, in it. And it's definitely like looking back, like if that was right now, I would probably be more relaxed. But I think having like a, what Scarlett was probably 5. Yeah, she was 5. I had a 5 and like 2.5-year old. So it was like it's a different like toddler stage, you know?
totally. And that's what I was going to ask. Like, even when you launched the business, your first daughter was born, and you had two younger ones when you were really blowing up, which is very different to like the position you are today and how old they are today. But how did you deal with those chaotic times? Like, was it just heads down? You just
I mean,
went
hands
support?
down, a lot of wine, a lot of I mean, that's why I mean, I definitely had like I really that first month when we opened the store, like I really had anxiety. I had to do like deep breathing, download the Calm app, do lots of long walks. I was just like very, very overwhelmed because I really needed the right support. And it's also really hard to find like and to figure out who you're going to trust. And so I'm very much
Mhm.
like the creative and I really needed a strong business, leader as well. And so luckily, my head of sales, we sort of transitioned her to help be the brand president. And my husband started to get more involved in like financial things, numbers, Excel, all the things that I'm not the best at. And like I really had to get stay really focused in terms of all the creative, which is also what happened throughout COVID because it was like, everyone's working from home and it got really intense too. And you really have to compartmentalize like what everyone's doing and the strengths and weaknesses of everyone and how you can, sort of work together. But I
Mhm.
think it's like, it definitely was like daunting. And so I think it's just, you feel like you're on this like pendulum, like you're going, 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 and you can't stop for sure. And there were definitely times where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, or, and then it's like your social life and this and that and travel and all these things. But I mean, at the end of the day, I was still having fun and I
Okay.
was learning. And it was so great. It was so inspiring. And like I was just, I loved the community that I was a part of. I loved meeting everyone at the store. I loved nothing more than like seeing these girls and women trying on the clothes and talking to them and seeing what I could improve on. And then like having this direct relationship with everyone through social media. And I was like, so then the drive got like even more and more, you know? And
Yeah.
so for
Yeah.
me, it's like when when it's more, then it's more of a challenge. And then, but I like thrive in those situations. So, and I feel like sleep is underestimated, is overestimated. I'm just
Oh,
like,
really? Oh, like,
I'll
good for
sleep
you. You
whenever.
can
No,
function.
I do sleep, but like I get so excited about things
Yeah.
that like, then I'll have like a marathon sleep. Like Saturday night, I slept for 10 hours and I woke up and I was like, wow. But for the most part, I like to go, go, go.
Yeah, and what I love so much about you and the go 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 nature is that you're finding inspiration and like you're excited, right? It seems like you're not sleeping because you have to stay up doing
I have too many
operational stuff.
ideas. I have like 1,000
Ideas.
ideas. And
Yeah.
travel is like a huge inspiration for me. So when I travel, my brain is like, it's like on fire and everything. I'm like photographing, shopping, feeling inspired here, but like, by all of it. So it's hard, even when I'm like away on vacation.
Yes.
It's always, I'm always working. I'm working. I never really, I don't even know when I'm not working. But so it's always, and that's what happens when you have your own business and when you have your own company and you love what you do. I feel like it's always, or that's, how we have so many amazing collaborations. If I'm like, whatever it may be, I'm feeling like inspired to continue to evolve and to move forward. And I feel like the second that I'm bored with something, then obviously everybody else is going to be. So it's like just fun to keep
Yeah.
it interesting and exciting.
I love that. And that's actually something I'm thinking a lot about. The past 6 months, our business has grown a lot and it's been like heads down operations. We sold out, like, all the nitty gritty and all beautiful stuff, but just a lot of like heads down working. And I'm finally looking up and I'm like, how do I continue to stay inspired? Because, like you said, when you're bored or you're burnt out or you're not feeling excited, like the business, the team, the customers, like it exudes everywhere.
Yeah, and you feel it and you see it. And especially, I mean, that's like I pretty much am like always wearing Love Shack Fancy or I'm wearing vintage or like a few high-end, designer pieces that I'll mix in as well. But like I need to love it. Not want to, like I need to love
Yeah.
it. And so that's how also like, the brand has grown as I've grown. Like I'm, what am I, almost 42. So now my style has changed. I'm not in like always in the short skirts. I'm in the 3/4 length or the longer or the covered sweater. And so it's really evolving the customers, the age, like, so our brand in terms of the depth of like who we're designing for, we're designing for so many more sophisticated and mature women now too, from their 30s up, all the way up to their my mom's mid 70s. She doesn't want me to say that, but
Yeah,
whatever.
no, my
And I didn't say that. She's fabulous. She's in her early 60s. But like, so it's like I'm thinking of everyone. I'm thinking of all the different women in my life and their daughters and their mothers and the different styles and like, and so I think that's how you're also always evolving. And it's hard to be able to be everything to everyone, but I feel like it's a good challenge. And there isn't really a brand that in my opinion does such a great job of it. So I feel like that's really the niche of Love Shack Fancy.
I literally have goosebumps. It's incredible that your brand really impacts like every woman at every
At
age. It's
every age. And it's like,
phenomenal.
and it really started off much more as like a resort wear, like beach, lifestyle brand. And then we have evolved in the last like 5 years to so much more of, because we do 4 seasons and like our outerwear is amazing and our knitwear. And so we're taking the girls and the women, not just like to the beach, and it's not just the summer wardrobe, even though that's what a lot of people have typically thought of Love Shack Fancy over the years, but now we're really taking her, we're taking her to London, to Paris, to New York City, to, Connecticut, winter weekend, to Aspen skiing. We're doing, ski. We literally are doing like everything. So it's fun to think about that and to design into it and to have the different categories and think about, and that's really just like how we're continuing to evolve and to be, and then recently we've launched beauty, so our fragrances have been like a huge hit and super successful, which is amazing.
Yeah. And how did you think about? I mean, I'm sure you have a million ideas. I mean, this is for sure a lifestyle brand. How did you think about launching fragrance? Was it something you heard from the community or what was
Yeah,
the
I mean, people have been asking us, when are you going to do fragrance? When are you going to do fragrance for so many years? Like Erin Lauder, we did a collaboration with her years ago, and she's like, you have to do fragrance. And I was like, I have known nothing about it. And I always had assumed, because when you think of it, is that you're going to have license by a big perfume company, like an Estee Lauder or anyone, who really the big perfume companies. And I always felt a little intimidated again about that, just because I didn't want to be like at the mercy of these like suits and like saying, okay, this is what your brand should smell like, this is what it should look like, and all those things. And so honestly, we met with so many different companies for like a year and a half, tried to figure out what was the right thing to do. And everyone said fragrance for sure. Beauty has huge potential. And also seeing my daughters, as they're now 8.5, or 8 and 10.5, they're obsessed with beauty. Like the world of these young girls is insane with fragrance, beauty, skincare. It's like wild. And so I look to them. I learn so much from them. It's like Gen Alpha, like it's crazy what goes on. So we knew we were definitely needing to get into this category. And then so we developed our fragrances on our own with the help of this company who sort of guided us. And we hired an amazing GM of beauty in-house. So like instead of in the beginning, I didn't hire someone to like lead the fashion. So this time I've kind of learned from what I didn't do with fashion and learned on my own for all those years. And we just were like, okay, we're hiring someone who's amazing, who's going to teach us what we need to know. And then we were able to partner with Sephora. And so we did an exclusive with them for a few years, and they've been amazing. So we get like in the kitchen with them, they call it, and they really have been guiding us on the fragrances and, the look and feel. And so it's been really, really successful. And we're already working on the fourth fragrance. We like just sold out actually of our best selling fragrance there. I think we have two of them are sold out on Sephora.com already, which is crazy. It's
amazing?
in almost every Sephora. Then we're launching another fragrance in July, and then we're doing
Mhm.
body mist in September, which is going to be really incredible too. So
I'm so excited about all this. And it's so cool to see that it took you about, you were saying, like a year and a half to really understand, like you were a little intimidated but learning, but once you kind of went go, you moved fast.
And yeah, no, and it also, it's like it's launching, like we're a startup beauty
Yep.
brand, right? Like we don't
Mhm.
have the financial, we're very much so, it's like Love Shack Fancy Beauty is its own mini startup within Love Shack Fancy, because we don't have the funding of like this mega, company behind us. And so we needed to find out if it worked. And luckily, it is working. And we decided to just really be able to partner with again, it's like, it's the perfect combination between doing it within your own channels, like direct to consumer, so in our stores and in our website, and then with a partner on the wholesale side. And because their marketing, their exposure, I mean, it's like unbelievable, so I just like, and so many of their customers have never heard of Love Shack Fancy. It's a completely different demographic. It's a completely different. And so what's amazing is they're actually falling in love with the perfumes on their own, just because they love the bottle, they love the packaging, and they love the scents. But they don't, so many of them don't even know Love Shack Fancy as a clothing brand, or they might not be able to afford it, or, whatever it is. So,
Brilliant. I didn't even think about that aspect of it. That's
yes. Yeah.
amazing. I'm so curious. There's all these new projects that light you up and are energy givers. Would you say there's anything that drains your energy that you're mindful of, whether it was the early days of the business or even now that like when I have these meetings or these problems, like it just drains my energy?
I mean, budgets. Budget meetings are no, like that is not fun. So the end of the year is always like, oh, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, but it's also at the same time, it's also like, okay, so here's a challenge, Rebecca. You can't spend, X this. The budget has like gone down, 20% since last year for photo shoots and whatever else. So you have to be more creative, and you have to be scrappier, and you have to, and also I really am like that. Like I get like down and dirty and everything. And so many people, because we have such a strong team, visuals, creatives, and it's kind of, everyone's able to sort of take my vision and, expand on that and bring all of that. It seems like we spend much, much, much more than we do. Like we're really, like when we're working with other companies or hiring them, we're like, forget it. We have to do it all in house, because
Yeah.
we just like, we know how to make it work. And it's like a secret sauce that I think that we have, and that we
Mhm.
just, we love. And so that's why it is important. We've been able to build our incredible team like a lot in the last few years. And I was able to hire like really strong senior leadership in the last actually like year and a half, which has been amazing and so important, because like when you reach a certain point, there's only a certain place that I can help to take everything. So now I have like the most exceptional, I'm so lucky. I have the most exceptional team, and each one of them is leading their own departments and like really bringing in their area of expertise. And so that's all exciting. So I mean, I would say like the budget stuff, the numbers, the budget, but and then at the end of the day, it's like it's still fashion, and it still needs to be fun. So you just need to, like,
Sure.
I'm always up for the challenge. So and then fashion week is like so exciting and inspiring, it's just stressful. So but I think that's like, I don't really get nothing. It's all pretty positive.
It can be stressful and still amazing at the same time because it's your passion. It's what lights you up. So it's not even like one or the other. And I had a friend tell me that the other day. I was like, it's really tough right now, but I love it. And she's like, you can do both. It can be tough and you can still like enjoy it. So the having both is just maybe like
Exactly.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. And I'm so curious. I was reading, I've been following you guys on social and you guys went completely viral on TikTok. I don't know what year was that, during COVID, or what really took you guys to another level on TikTok?
Well, so I think for TikTok, it was really the Bama Rush. That was like the big thing. So I didn't even know what Bama Rush was, and
Yeah.
we just only started doing our own TikTok like after that, sort of more in response to it, because there was this huge like sort of organic growth and demand, and everyone was like, "Oh, my OOTD, my outfit of the day is Love Shack Fancy," and the like preppy. It's like this preppy. Sort of trend, that it's a new preppy trend. And so it's like fun colors. and ruffle mini skirts. Love Shack Fancy is very preppy. So like all these girls were doing unboxing, like all this stuff. And then I remember when it was brought to my attention, it was in the middle, it was like towards the end of COVID, basically. And everyone was doing, and I at first was like, oh my gosh, like these girls, we can't, everyone's gonna think we're just like a college sorority brand, like this isn't good, you know. Then I started looking into it, and it was actually kind of amazing and interesting. And I, again, in that instance, didn't know that there was like a massive following of girls from like
Yeah.
Alabama, Arizona, Kentucky. Like it was like cult status. Like everyone was doing Rush in their Love Shack Fancy outfit of the day outfits. So it was like a full on thing. And so then we kind of started to lean into that a bit because like also a lot of our stores happen to be in college towns as well or close by. You
Was
know,
that
so
on
we would do
purpose or
not,
coincidental?
yeah, more like coincidentally. And we would, you know, start to do some activations. Like now we've like done fun things. We do little pop-ups, trunk shows. We do like during game days, we'll do like our ruffle mini skirts and our best-selling little Natasha dresses in the school colors that the girls wear. We'll do you know, we've done things at sorority houses. Like I just was checking our DMs recently and everyone's like, "Oh, we want to do a partnership in our Kappa Pi." But I was never in a sorority, so I feel like I'm living out my sorority dreams, like with all of this in like a whole other world. And so it's hysterical and amazing for me to watch it because it's so crazy and cult. But a lot of the girls that work here were in sororities or they know it. But yeah, so that really went full on viral. And you know, and then we started like doing different things. And then there have been some influencers again who like we've never paid influencers, so this has all just been like an organic, like with if we send, you know, something to someone and they like it or they buy it themselves, just like depending.
Oh my gosh, I love that. What a surprise that must have been. Just like,
Yeah.
and I also was in a sorority, so I'd be like, wait, what's going on? What
Oh,
is
yeah,
this?
exactly. I was like, "What?" I couldn't even understand them with their thick Southern accents, and it's, like, so fun. But, like, we do have a lot of stores in the South, so, you know, I think that the girls and then it's just, like, this, you know, popularity. It's, like, cult status, this, like, Love Shack Fancy. And also, we had done a collaboration with Target during, like it launched actually it was supposed to be March 2020, but because of COVID, it was pushed to April. And then that was like it was supposed to be huge activations in all the stores, but to be safe, it was mostly online. So that really like had like a viral launch. And so I think that really throughout all of Instagram and then organically it happened on TikTok as well that everyone was like posting and doing all this stuff about their Target pieces, you know?
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. And I know I was reading an article where you mentioned like how involved you were and probably still are about like the DMs and being involved with social.
Yeah.
At what point were you like, okay, this is too many messages, like I need support? Were you in it for the
I
like a
mean,
very
I am
long
still so I have to be reminded by they're like, "Rebecca, you have to stop." Like,
Yeah.
I am crazy. I like to read every comment. I like to read every DM. Now I have, you know, an amazing team and like they help, of course, to answer and to like customer service and things like that. And then we know when like launched our Gap collaboration, for example, like it went like viral TikTok. Everyone was trying to guess what was in the collaboration. So we need more support. But like I really a lot of the times people are like, "Oh, who am I speaking to?" It's like, "Hi, I'm
Yeah.
Rebecca." Like I
Yeah.
really am like in it. And I don't know if it's like half I'm like addicted to it.
Yeah.
I don't do the TikTok. So that's the good thing. I guess I'm more, you know, old school with Instagram because that's like more my age group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so at least I'm not like into the TikTok craze as well. I have someone who fully manages our TikTok. Um, but with Instagram, I just like, I need to know what people are wanting, what they're posting, what they're seeing. Cause I feel like if I don't, then I'm like out of touch with them. And I really like to be in touch because I find so much inspiration as well. Like even as we're designing new collections or like bringing back favorite styles, pieces, whatever, I see what girls are gravitating towards, what they're loving, what they're craving, you know, like things like that. So
I love
I
it.
don't know if it makes me feel close to like this more extended community.
Yeah, for sure. And I love, so you mentioned you get inspiration from the customers that you connect with, traveling. Anything else that kind of keeps your creative juices flowing?
So, I mean, everything like for me, it's the travel, it's like vintage inspiration. So I have a massive archive of vintage pieces, which we take, so I'm constantly buying and sourcing for that. And then we'll take prints and we'll hand paint, we have our talented designers like hand paint the prints or just, change the prints into our colorways. Same for all the laces. Everything that we create, it's all custom to Love Shack Fancy. So it's not something that you'll ever buy at like a market or anywhere else. It's all custom developed. Um, so it's really the mix of like sourcing, shopping, buying, which I do a lot of the times when I'm traveling. And
Hmm.
my daughters are like a huge inspiration and their friends. And then at the same time, my mom is like I see what she's gravitating towards. And then I would say our customers and I would say that's like the most part. But I love to like travel and see how
Hmm.
the style is super different in London or in Paris. Like I'm dying to go to Tokyo. I know I'm going to be so inspired there, but I need to get there. Um, and different places. Like it's like you get the island vibes when you're in the Caribbean, St. Bart's, Tulum, like that element. And for me, it's very much like the world of Love Shack and Fancy. And so like love, like the way that I think about it is like love is like your day to night, like your everyday, your best friend, the pieces you're always wearing. Fancy is like what you're wearing for more events, special occasions, the fancier pieces, more elevated, sophisticated, expensive. And then shack is like more beach and more bohemian and sort of in that world. So you're wearing that to, warm weather, like your like mermaid vibes on the beach and that kind of thing. So we really design like not only just our fashion, but also now our beauty into those three worlds of Love Shack and Fancy. So now I'm excited. I'm going on like a warm weather trip. I'm going to get into my shack vibes. Like I haven't
Yeah.
had that in a while. So I get it's really like the culture, the locals, the people,
Mhm.
I see what everyone's wearing. I take photos of everything. I'm like in it. So
I
it's
love
all
it.
fun.
Yeah, and I love the way you talk about Love Shack Fancy and like different modes of what you're
Yeah.
doing and how I
Yeah,
didn't even
and, like,
think
it's
about
just different it could be different personalities of yours, it
that.
could be, where you're inspired, where you're traveling, but, like, for me, there's always it's like what you're bringing out. It's like the love chakra fancy, like, I'm, like, love and, like, the city data, and then it's, like, fancy when you're trying you're you're channeling that, like, more glamorous, fancier, and then the shack is just when you're getting down to your to that
Oh
beachy
my God, I
self.
love it. I feel
Yeah.
like a vacation right now. That sounds lovely. I'm excited for you. Well, Rebecca, you've been building this brand for almost over 10 years. You're hitting that mark.
We just did 10
You
years
just
this
hit 10
summer.
years, right? Wow, incredible. It's been a decade. What do you think has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself in this process?
The most surprising thing about myself, I would say that I can definitely micromanage a lot. And that every time I thought that I wasn't going to be able to sort of take the next steps and to evolve as a entrepreneur, as a creative, as a business leader, as a mom, I've definitely proven to myself that I'm able to do it. And I think just like, being like entering into your 40s and having my business now entering into the next decade, you sort of like look and, you look back and you look at all the things that you've done and would have done differently. But at the same time, it's like, everything has sort of made my journey and experience has sort of helped to formulate where I am now and how I've been here and how I do feel very like grounded and I feel very grateful and you get onto your in different times you get onto your high horse, you're so confident, you feel this, you feel like you're like on top of the world, and then something happens and you're down, and so now it's like having this great balance where it's really like I'm so inspired by all the amazing people that I'm lucky enough to be around and to work besides. And, I see their passion and devotion to my business, which everyone feels so excited about and everyone's like love of it. And, it's like a different stage with my daughters who are going into like this like it's a whole other world. So it's like, they were little girl. Now they're not such little girls. It's all different phases of life. And So you kind of, it's just like along the journey, and sort of just discovering and learning new things about yourself, and just I'm still trying to figure out how to take more time for myself and like what that means. But I think having like figuring out the balance is really important, and just figuring out what makes you happy, and what how you're going to be able to succeed in all the different ways and not be too overwhelmed.
No, 100%. And when you started Love Shack Fancy, did you ever envision it to be where it is today, like looking back of 10
Oh
years
my
ago?
God, no. I was
I
like, I
love
wanted
that.
a little brand, even though the word brand wasn't even like a little clothing line, that I was like, at first I said we would never sell to department stores, just to small boutiques. I wanted to make like 8 to 10 styles. That was it. And it was just going to be a fun side project. And like, I had never an intention of like having employees and having like a whole business, but and nothing. So I think it was really like a go with the flow and
Mhm.
see and learn. And I'd always asked, it was really like my husband that I had said, like, well, if you're helping me, can I get like, can we have a business plan? He's like, no, because business plans don't even matter. So
Okay,
which
I love that.
I don't know if I didn't believe then. I don't know if I believe now, even though we never really like followed the rules. That's the thing. Like, we never followed, we always like went against what what people were saying. When they said don't open stores, retail is dead, we opened stores. When they said like, don't do this like flowy bohemian romantic clothing, like I did it. So I was always like kind of going against the grain, and just following my heart and doing that. And so I feel like as we've done that, so it really wasn't a business plan. It wasn't what most like professional or established people in the worlds of fashion, and probably in beauty actually now too, that we've spoken to, would have suggested or said. So I really think it's been, we've kind of set our own rules, and now such a different time where like, really anything can go as long as you believe in it, and you have the right strategy, you have the right passion, motivation. So I think, it's definitely been an interesting, it's like you don't often sit there and then like think about it, but
Yeah.
now that I do, I think it is really it is really amazing, and it's so exciting. And I definitely know, never ever had imagined Love Shack Fancy being where it is now. And my mom always was like, you work too hard. You work too that, you need to be with the girls more. Stop working. Stop. But I mean, I feel like I was like that with her too. And she's kind of my toughest critic, but yet my like best cheerleader along the side, but she's like
Yeah.
super high standards. So I'm constantly pushing and striving, and but it's nice to just like also then just say, okay, wow, look at this. Like, I'm proud of
Mhm.
us.
Mhm. I love that. There's so many things that you've done that kind of went against the grain with what you were saying, like Love Shack Fancy. You were doing things that were not common from other business owners, no business plan. You were going with the flow and doing the right next thing that was for you. And also having your mom, telling you like, stop working so much. Like you're still just being who you are. Like you're still an incredible mom, still doing your business. And I love that you've created this life that's true to you. And I wish that for every woman. Like you didn't waver to what anyone else was doing, which is a huge aspect of your success, and I love that.
Yeah, and I think it was very much like, for me, the way it worked is it just worked to like like I live, breathe, eat, sleep like Love Shack Fancy as a world, as a business, as a lifestyle, as a like, it is like you see what you get. Like there is nothing that like I go to the office and it turns on, or I go home, like home, work, travel, kids, husband, it's all there. And so I think that is really, it very much like is a part of me. So it's easy to kind of let this be my business, because it just is. I have too many ideas for life itself. So
Yeah,
like,
I know. I
it's
get that.
definitely it's just, and that's how I've been able, I guess, like really to balance it all, because it just is, it's like part of who I am, part of the DNA. And just also, you know I really do believe that like you can do it all. Like you can be, like, you can be a great mom, and you can have your own business. It's so much easier to be able to do that balance now in this day and age than it was when I was growing up and my mom was working, where it was like you're only working at the office, and then like, you can't work, like, because we can be in touch, we're on text, we're on email, we're on social, like you can work different times remotely, whatever else it may be. So I really think that like you're able to find a balance between parenting, between, business, between so like everything. And so it really is like that's exciting. And I feel like there's so much more opportunity for women and girls to be able to do amazing things because you really just need to take it into your own hands and figure out the way that it works for your own lifestyle because you don't have to be like stuck at the desk, all day, just like on the laptop, like responding to emails. So I think for bosses as well, like for founders, companies, like everyone needs to understand that too. And the I think employees, like everyone should be in places and feel inspired and feel challenged and that kind of thing. So
I love it. I'm so inspired. Rebecca, well, let's end on a last question. Tell us what you're excited about. I know you're doing so many things, but maybe a few you can share with us for what's next for the brand, any fun partnerships, products.
yeah, we have I can't say which collaborations we're doing, but we have a really fun one on like in February. It's going to break the internet. I swear it's going to go TikTok
Excited.
crazy. So that's a really fun one inspired by my daughter's like one of their obsessions. Actually, we have like three insane, really fun collabs coming up, which are a little different for us and out of the box and from like February through the summer, which is great. And then beauty, Love Shack Fancy Beauty is like going full speed ahead and our fragrances are doing so well. They have like sold out and we're restocking, but then we have a like our best one yet that's launching in July. And then these body mists, which like I know everyone, all these young girls are obsessed with, which are launching in September. So those will be also with Sephora and then for us too. So that will be really, really exciting and major.
Amazing. I'm so excited. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for being here. This was so much fun and such an honor to meet you.
Oh, great. Thank you for your time.